Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abby, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abby, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abby podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dear Abby. I am your host and welcome back to this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Other than dubs and L's, we are talking about admitting that you're wrong, changing your mind, not being so stubborn, and also how exercise truly does help with any type of mental illness, or just if you're in a bad place or anything like that. Moving your body really does wonders for your well-being, and we all know that. So even though we all know the things that are available to us to do, and it's annoying that we hear the same things over and over again, it's about maybe just actually really committing and trying and letting go of, trying to figure it out yourself or trying to find your own solution to some of the basic problems of life, like exercising when you don't feel physically great and mentally great and, doing those types of things. But first, before we get into all that fun stuff, I will share some life updates with you guys. I am very excited because I'm going to be a guest on my sister's podcast and with my mother, so that should be fun. I don't know when that's going to come out. I also don't know if I'm supposed to say that, so sorry if I'm not supposed to say that yet. Yeah, it was really fun. I'm really excited. My family was just in town for the 4th of July, so we spent a lot of time together. If you guys don't follow me on TikTok, you can follow me on TikTok. I don't post a ton. I'm trying to get back into it. I'm really bad at posting. It's really not like the easiest thing for me. It's one of those things where I have a hard time sticking to one thing. And I have a hard time with a lot of things. I have a hard time with sticking to one thing in a lot of areas of my life. Not relationship. That's something I can commit, but when it comes to like career or things I'm talking about or things I'm doing or things I'm posting, it's really hard for me to just stay on one thing. But I have fun on there, and so you don't know what you're going to get. But I posted a video about how I've had like one of the best days I've had in a long time. And it wasn't due to the lack of intrusive thoughts. I still had pretty ugly thoughts, and that before, maybe like a couple months ago even, or a year ago, 2 years ago, would have just sent me into a spiral and a rabbit hole that would be weeks to recover from, months sometimes. But I had a lot of normal intrusive thoughts throughout the day, but I was able to be present still and just re-engage with who's in front of me and what's in front of me. And I think a major compulsion that I have been talking about with my therapist lately as like some compulsions are really sneaky. Like it's not like as easy as you would think to identify what compulsive behaviors you have, just because if you've been doing them for a long time, it kind of creeps up and it's sneaky in your daily routine. But a huge one of mine was checking. So I would check to see if I had anything somatic or my throat or my chest or my breathing. I'm like, oh my gosh, have I always felt this way? Is this how my breath always feels? When I have existential themes, so when I feel like depersonalization or derealization is occurring again and I feel not real, nothing feels real, I don't feel attached, I don't know who I am, it feels like. Any of that type of stuff, like out of body type weird ideas, thoughts, feelings, I usually and still struggle with checking to be like, okay, how did I used to feel? What did it used to feel like to be in my body? How did this emotion used to feel? Did I used to think about this and this? It just goes into a lot of you can't get a good answer, and you never get like that thing that you're looking for with OCD you're never going to get it. It's so devastating because you just want that feeling of certainty or that feeling of, okay, now I completed that. Now everything is going to fall into place. But it's just not going to happen. And it never will. It never has for anyone. That's not reality. For me, identifying that checking how I'm feeling, checking all of these things is a huge compulsion. And with that knowledge, I was able to identify when I wanted to check. And it's almost like a split second before I'm already doing a compulsive reviewing, mentally reviewing or checking, or, going back in my past and trying to feel like, how did I used to feel with my family? And anything like that, I was able to identify in that split second and be like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to choose this path instead. So that was a huge dub from this week. Also, it just was such a good day with my family. I miss my family. Like, the older I get, the more I just want to move to a little town and just have all my family and friends and, grandparents and cousins, like all in like a small little town together. Yeah, the older I get, the more I cherish my family. And I feel like I've always understood, I think, how important my family is to me. But the older I get, the more in tune with myself and how I'm feeling, I want to be closer to my family. Because I do feel when I want to run away from my family, it's also this thing of wanting to run away from certain feelings or things within myself. So that's just my experience. So when I'm feeling really good and I'm feeling really connected with myself, I want to just be super close to everybody that I love. I hope everyone had a good 4th of July and was safe. There was some crazy things that were happening in Orange County, which was kind of scary, like bad things. Robberies. California kind of scares me sometimes, only because this is kind of political, but it's kind of scary when they start to decriminalize like criminals and, criminal acts. So it's a little bit scary, but we won't get into that. I don't really have an L for this week. I genuinely have been super okay, and I've had really good days and really medium days. I think the only L I could think of is I worked out today, like literally an hour ago. And sometimes when I'm working out, there's certain muscles that I'm trying to, obviously, I was trying to just focus on my glutes. Mostly the exercises I was doing kind of just hit the glutes, and I've researched the crap out of them. And I know how to do it to where it like hyper focuses on your actual glutes and the different muscles around there. And normally when I do these exercises, I'm able to feel that my glute is working, that my butt is working, versus my hammies or my quads or anything. I can feel that my butt is working and it feels amazing. You feel like your butt grew like 12 times in the span of, 20 minutes, even though nothing really changed, I don't think. So I was doing the exercises and I couldn't, like, the mind to muscle was just not there, and it was driving me bonkers, because normally I feel like I can connect to whatever muscle I'm working, and it's just muscle memory. Like, like if you're doing a bicep curl, like, how that feels to just be targeting your bicep. Everything like that I'm normally can isolate pretty well. My butt just was not engaging. It was so weird. I don't know if my butt was just so tired. I was so shaky. I think I was just really hungry because I ate a big breakfast and then I ate a pretty decent lunch. But by the time I got home, I was pretty hungry and I didn't eat before I worked out. So I was pretty shaky the whole time. I just got to bring snacks to work. Yeah, that's my L, is that I couldn't feel my butt as much during my workout, which was a big bummer, if you know what I mean. Let's get into today's episode. So like I said, this week has been kind of eye-opening on a few different behaviors that I do. And I think one of the main things that I still get stuck in with OCD, and I think just in life in general, is acting like I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, but really not stepping out of my comfort zone. There's like a different type of discomfort that you kind of have to tap into if you want real change. And it takes a lot of courage to do this because it is very unknown. It's like stepping into the unknown. So to give an example of what I'm talking about specifically, I sometimes, when I'm in a bad headspace or when I have kind of fallen into the traps of OCD, I get really stuck in this place of feeling like I never want to be doing anything different, and I want everything to be the same because I know that feeling. And even if the feeling is misery and the feeling is helplessness, hopelessness, I'm comfortable there. And I know that feeling. So it's like I know I can exist with it. But I think what I'm speaking to is getting more courage to step out of that place and maybe be okay with being happy and being okay with not solving everything. And to give like a specific example of what that looks like for me in my experience, I love TV at night, and it's something that is a total comfort for me. There are times where I take it too far and I go to bed watching TV, and I've talked about this maybe before. There's also just certain types of mindsets I get into, and it's a trying to solve everything about everything mindset, and that's a comfortable place to be. I know what that's like. I know what that feels like. Even though I kind of hate it, it's like I'm comfortable there. But it's not like this like inquisitive, pondering, wondering type of mindset. It's like I need to know. I don't love being there, but I'm used to going there in my mind. But after doing the same things of going to sleep with the TV on and then maybe playing video games for a bit too long, too late into the night, doing these behaviors that you maybe take it a little bit too far. It's very common probably for doom scrolling and stuff like that. You just get into this headspace of not wanting to feel anything and not wanting to have to really feel anything and change anything. I love my comfort foods. I love my comfort shows. I love my comfort mindsets, honestly, and my comfort video games and all of that stuff. And I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with anything that brings you comfort. However, I 100% from experience know that there can be way too much comfort in your life, that it starts to inhibit the way that you live and inhibit your actual happiness. Because, for example, I love shows like Modern Family and, those types of comfort shows, because I've grown up very anxious and I've had OCD and all of these things. And my mind doesn't like when it can't predict what's going to happen, even though it tries. And so I stick to TV shows that repeat the same thing over and over again. I'll watch the same show like 40 times and I know what's going to happen. And that was comfortable to me. I thought that was just like, oh, I'm just anxious, so I'm going to watch the shows over and over again. And I came to realize that was just a way, and I know that this sounds maybe too deep for some people, but I really feel like this is kind of life-changing for me, this type of behavior specifically, to stop watching the same shows over and over and over again, because for me, it was a compulsive behavior of not wanting anything to change. It gave my brain a false sense of that I know what's going to happen. Like, I know everything that's going to happen. And so if I can feel that comfort watching a show and I know what's going to happen, then it makes me feel more comfortable in life. When in reality, it's actually making me feel less comfortable with like the uncertainty of life and just letting that go. A huge part of my anxiety and OCD journey has been letting go of control. It's something that I'll let go of, and then 7 months later to a year later, I'm like still grasping at it again, and I have to learn to let it go. Every time I've learned to let it go again, my life seriously feels like it's like a complete switch, and I'm so much happier. And a huge part of that is trust and faith. So because I used to watch the same shows over and over and over again, and that wasn't that long ago, like that's been my whole life. When I was younger, even in high school and before high school, my family, you could ask anyone, I would always fall asleep on the couch downstairs. I would watch TV until I went to sleep, because at night is when my brain started to scare me and I had to face myself. And that felt very overwhelming. So years of doing that, of constantly ignoring certain feelings, those things just grow bigger and bigger. And that fear of turning inwards grows bigger and bigger. And that grasp that you have on trying to control and wanting to know everything that happens grows bigger and bigger. So now at 26, when I'm trying to face all of these feelings, they feel like huge monsters. Like they feel so heavy and all consuming. And it's because, and it's not my fault, I didn't know that was going to be the outcome, but now that I do know, it is my responsibility to try to make sure I don't fall into the same types of repetitive traps and compulsive behaviors. Like, it could even be you're going to bed to the same type of music or the same song or something. And for other people, it might not be a big deal because that might not be a way of avoiding things. But people who especially have OCD, that is something that you do have to watch out for, that you don't get stuck in the same types of behavioral patterns that just further show your brain that you need the same things in order to be happy. Like, you can't handle change. We can handle a lot of change, and that's something I've learned. I can handle so much change. I don't love it at the beginning. I really don't love it. I'm very happy with my life. I don't love change, but we can handle the change. And so I think it's just teaching your brain that you can handle the change, and then letting go of like the same things over and over and over again, and making room for more, making room for life to feel different, to be different, for new people, for new beginnings with the same people. So I guess identifying the behaviors for yourself that you know which ones you kind of are avoiding yourself with or avoiding something with. I feel like we're smart enough to know which behaviors and which, things we're doing are probably not helpful to our mental state, and to take those seriously because you are responsible for that. No one's going to save you, I guess, in that way. Like, you do have to work hard for change and for an actual real change to happen. As well as going into the discomfort, something that was really hard and sometimes still is triggering for me is just to shower. Something about being totally vulnerable, and then I get in the shower. I've had a lot of sexual themes with OCD, which have been pretty horrific. So it's just uncomfortable for me. It's uncomfortable to be by myself, like in the shower. And that's probably been one of the most frustrating things and saddest things, is like, I don't like to shower and clean myself off because I feel I'm not comfortable with my body, not comfortable with myself. Now I am getting better. Like, that's something that fluctuates a ton, but it's definitely on an uphill. So that's good. We're getting there. But that's one thing that I would avoid showering, which sounds really gross, but mental illness is mental illness. It's not going to look good. But obviously, to maintain hygiene, I needed to shower. So I would shower really fast, or I would blast music so I didn't have to like sit in silence. And be with myself, and all of that for years just made it more and more intense. So now when I do shower and I try to turn off music, sometimes I listen, but if I'm feeling anxious, I try to turn everything off and just be like, okay, I feel really uncomfortable right now. I feel really vulnerable and scared, and I just experience it. I know that in order to get past this, I have to go through it, that whole thing. And I stand by that. That's very true. That rings true for me in my experiences. Now, though, I'm in a way better place to where I can shower, and it's just nice and it's relaxing, even though I have some of the same thoughts that pop up and images and stuff. But I'm more comfortable with myself, and I know I can handle it because I've exposed myself to showering with no loud music, or I'm more comfortable with myself. I've built a better relationship with myself, so I know I can handle any uncomfortable thoughts or feelings that pop up if I'm showering. Okay, I've strayed kind of from the original idea for this episode, which was to not be stubborn and to actually implement some changes. I think when we hear the same types of advice over and over again, it can be very repetitive and like, okay, give me something new. And I think that that's just not helpful. That type of mindset of give me the new fix for feeling better, when we know that the basics of eating good, moving your body every day, being with people that you love, being kind to yourself, all that stuff has proven to work to enjoy a better life, having a faith, being part of a community, all of that stuff. And we can try to change it as much as we want. We can try to figure out a different way, but some things are just fundamentally, that just makes a better life. So sometimes I want to be stubborn and not do the things that I know probably will help me just because they've been told to me a million times and I'm wrong. So admitting that you're wrong can be so hard, but it's so worth it because it's so freeing afterwards. Yeah, let go of being stubborn. I think sometimes being stubborn, on one hand of the coin, because you know how it's like some personality traits or some traits that people have on one side of the coin, it's brilliant. On the opposite side, it's rough. For me, I'm really sensitive, so that's positive in some ways. On the opposite side, I'm someone that I get very overwhelmed with my emotions, and I can be really selfish when that happens because I feel like I can't think clearly. Like I have to calm down and then I can think rationally. But in the moment, I can be really just like, I can shut down. I can go quiet. I don't want to explain myself. So I can be kind of, pouty or immature for a little bit. So that's a negative part. And you know what I mean? Everyone has that. I don't think I'm the most stubborn person I've ever met. I can be. I've met more stubborn, but on one side, being stubborn, I think, is so positive, because it's not necessarily stubborn. That's positive, but it's like people who are stubborn normally are very strong-willed and they are go-getters and they will do the things that they say they're going to do because they hold themselves to a very high standard. And they also are trying to pave their own way. So that's very positive and that's very cool. On the opposite side of the coin, if you're super stubborn, you don't want to admit that you might need other people's help, even though it's kind of dumb to think that you know more than every other person, especially in your field of practice and, whatever you're doing, that there's people who have more education. There's people who have a better understanding. There's people who are higher than you, no matter what field you're in, no matter what I'm regarding whatever. There's just always people who know more and have experienced more, most likely. So I think in that regard, it can be not helpful because then you're not willing to take advice and you're not really a good student sometimes. Now, not everyone who's stubborn is like a bad student. It's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that being stubborn sometimes can really bite you in the butt. And even though people are stubborn and the stubborn people we know, we love them to death, but it's also like sometimes I feel like they carry a burden of they have to be right all the time, or like, well, I've held so strong in this one way for so long, and so I don't want to like change my mind because everyone's going to judge me, or I'm going to feel stupid, or how did I waste this much time of my life doing it this way when now, I want to change my mind, but I'm too stubborn to change, or I'm too stubborn to admit that I was wrong, or that someone else, helped me or gave me good advice or whatever. And I feel like that's where, like, I don't want to be stubborn enough to not change or do something that I really want to do because I'm scared of what other people will perceive that as. When people in your life or when you change your mind, it's not a weak thing. It's a very hard thing to do, to admit that you're wrong and to actually change from the inside out. It's a very hard thing that not a lot of people would want to do. So I feel like for me, there's certain things that I can be really stubborn about that when I try to release that and just let go of it, I do feel like change starts to happen, and it's definitely worth it, but it is hard. And also, if there's people in your life that are stubborn or they're changing their mind about something, just always try to be the person that like doesn't make them feel bad and that doesn't, push it back in their face ever. But, if they change their mind about something that they've been really, maybe annoying to you about or whatever, and maybe you've told them something a million times and they're not listening. For example, if you have a friend that's in a not the best relationship, and by not the best, I mean clearly toxic, actually not, there's no end in sight to the toxicity. No one's really trying on the other end. And maybe you've told your friend, hey, when you see a guy behave this way, they're probably not going to treat you right, but then they keep going for the same types of guys. Whatever it is, if you see a repeated pattern in someone and you tell them, you're probably going to be better off if you don't go that way, but then they do over and over again because they're kind of being stubborn, then when they do change their mind and when they do listen, don't rub it in their face, because that's probably going to make them be more annoyed. But when you create a safe space for just like, we're all trying to figure this thing out together, then you create a better relationship, more safe, more open. Push your comfort zones, people, and not just like the cute comfort zones. I'm talking the real comfort zones of really letting things change and feeling like a new person in your body, feeling like a new person in your life, showing up differently. It's very exciting that we have the chance to really change our lives whenever we want. Yeah, I will not be going to bed watching TV anymore as much as I want to. Even saying that breaks my heart. My brain is like screaming at me like, no, please, we have to watch Modern Family to go to bed. It's not good for me. It's also probably just a dopamine addiction. We want everything here and now, right now, which we could talk about in a different episode, because I think that's a huge part of why we do the things that we do sometimes that aren't the most helpful to our health. But also we've been trained to do that. So we do adapt, but sometimes the adapt does not aid us. Okay, we're going to do a Dear Abby. Eventually we'll get back to voicemails, but for now we're still just going through texts. Oh boy, this looks spicy. As a reminder, you guys can text the number in the description and ask me any questions that you want. You can ask me literally whatever and I will answer, but mostly advice, questions, por favor. Or you can leave a voicemail. Hi, Abby. Love the pod and hope you are doing well. So I have this friend who is so hot and cold. Like one day she'll be mad at me for no reason and make me cry in front of the group, or all of us will hang out and she'll be cold to only me. And sometimes she's nice and I fully believe that she wants to be my friend. I don't know what I should do because we're in a friend group together with other girls I love, so I can't distance myself from just her. Thank you. Gosh, this one's kind of hard for me. Like one day she'll be mad for no reason and make me cry in front of the group. That's kind of mean. And all of us will hang out and she'll be cold to only me, and sometimes she'll be nice. Well, I have a lot of questions. Like, how long have you known her? Are you guys really close, or is she just like in a group? It sounds like that's like a group of you girls and she's just in the group, so you guys kind of have to hang out or something. What should you do? This is hard because there's not like one thing to do about this, like a quick fix or an obvious choice, because I don't know the exact situation, but I unfortunately am a little bit of an avoider of people like that, and I would probably just start to avoid her and just not give her as much of my attention in group settings and let things dwindle out a little bit. If it's a friendship that I really feel like is important to me and I think we could become really good friends and she really does care about me and, I really care about her and I want to water that friendship, then I would probably just try to hang out with her one-on-one and ask her how she's doing and maybe try to some way work in a conversation about how much you do not appreciate the way that she can behave and will make fun of you and is like rude to you in front of other people. Get into a conversation about that just to maybe understand her, how she's doing and what is in her brain and why she's acting like that. I feel like if I was in that situation, I would tell myself before I'd go hang out with her and your friends, or anytime you think she's going to be there, if she gets under your skin, I would give yourself a little pep talk, maybe journal it, but I would talk to yourself and remind you that it's not your problem if she's being rude to you, how you want to handle the situation, so that way you have a plan going into like those hangouts. Like, okay, for instance, if we're in a group setting, we're out and about, she starts saying rude comments or she starts being catty, my plan is to make a joke back at her if you want to be like that. Or my plan is to laugh it off, not give it much attention, move on. That way you feel more safe in knowing that you have a plan. That's what I would do, because I don't like those types of situations are very hard to navigate for me sometimes. So I like to be like, okay, if this is going to happen, possibly, then I'm going to do this. Doesn't have to be extensive, just almost like a mindset of I'm not going to let it bother me. Yeah, so if it's not a friendship if it's a friendship you don't want to water, that you don't really care about, that's okay. You don't have to be best friends with everyone. You can just be kind to everyone, but not everyone is going to end up being your best friend. So if she's not treating you right and you guys aren't even like the best of friends, then I think it's okay to just kind of avoid, in those group situations, to avoid just you and her vibing, or just give her very little attention to what she says. Not in a rude way, just in like, I'm not going to sit here and do this with you. I've had friends before where they were more mutual friends that I didn't love the way that they made me feel. And I would normally just avoid them. That's what I would do in group settings. I would laugh it off and I would make my way to the food table, wherever that was, to get away for a little bit. Or I would just not go hang out with anyone. Friendships can be so hard at this age. And when you're younger, I feel like they're always a little bit volatile or a little bit crazy, just because you're young girls with hormones and boys around. But friendships are hard at this age because you start to change a lot, like your mindset and how you think about and how you view the world. And if your friends don't change the same way, or you're the same, but maybe your friend's different, and it's just hard to reconnect if you're in completely different phases of life, or if just behaviorally it's like you don't get why she does the things that she does. It's kind of sad. Okay, you guys, thanks for listening to this week's episode. I'll be back next week. We're going to do a little bit of a different episode next week, and I'm really excited about it. So tune in. I post every Thursday. If you want to support the podcast, you can leave a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you could please write a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be so helpful. I love reading them and publishing any feedback. And also, I do post on YouTube, and Spotify now does have videos moving forward. So if you wanted to watch on Spotify, you totally could. But yeah, you can subscribe on YouTube, like, comment. I always reply. Well, I think, unless I miss comments, but yeah, I appreciate the support always for the podcast. I love you guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.